Okay, so welcome back after a short break. As I said before, we have the last use case in front of us, which will be presented by our dear client representative Ingmar and Martin from Accenture, our colleagues who are working on a very interesting case, which is in the category Tech4Good. And it also shows how we, Accenture, and our clients can help the society together. So Ingmar and Martin, handing over to you.
I think I got it. So, hello everyone. This is Ingmar from KfW. Sorry for the tech hiccup a bit. Good. Yeah, as you already said, we want to present one case which we did together with Accenture. And you might be wondering what KfW actually is. And it's a bank, but not a standard bank, but we are a promotional bank. And what does it mean? Well, we try to promote good things around the world within Germany, both on the environmental protection side, on the social side, but also, let's say, improving energy efficiency of houses within Germany. Or to provide, for example, loans to students which could otherwise not afford to study, right? So we're really trying to push a social and environmental topics within Germany. But we're also doing this not only in Germany, but also around the world, as we are the German Development Bank. And what does it mean? Well, we cooperate with our partners, yeah, being it in Asia, in South America or in Africa, to improve the local conditions for the local population, for the people in the countries, both, again, environmental topics and social topics, right? And having this aspect in mind, we figured out some time ago that it's not only giving money to countries to improve the situation, but also that tech and technology can actually play a vital role in improving conditions in the countries. Yeah? And the Oscar app we actually want to now show to you is one of the apps we are promoting. And for one specific case, we want to showcase to you now. Yeah? So how did actually Oscar and the idea about this app we are showing to you actually evolve? Yeah? And I want to tell you a bit the story how this began. And it actually began with Patrick, a colleague of mine at KfW. And in 2019, he actually went to Mozambique in Southern Africa because the country was hit by a huge cyclone. You might have heard it in the news, yeah? And which destroyed basically large parts of the country. There was a huge flood, which destroyed a lot of infrastructure there. And Patrick, my colleague, actually went there with a team of doctors to help with the building up the health infrastructure again, as part of an international team for humanitarian aid. Actually, at that time in the country, there were a lot of humanitarian organizations trying to help all over the country. And there was one headquarter actually, which basically should coordinate what everyone is doing, and bring the help to the parts where it's best needed. Yeah? And Martin, if you could switch to our presentation to this one picture, which I wanted to show to you, because Patrick arrived there in this headquarter, and basically he found a quite interesting situation, yeah, because it was obvious that people had to share data in this space, yeah. And they were not having an app, what we would, as techies, would think they should have. But there was actually huge walls, a huge facility with huge walls where people were actually putting papers on the wall with handwritten notes, all with printouts and so on. And you can see it here, right? So all these walls were full of papers with information, yeah. And then people, which you see here on the left, on the right-hand side, they were actually taking their mobile phones and taking photos of this information, and then perhaps sending it via WhatsApp to their teams. Yeah? And my colleague Patrick was saying, okay, that cannot be in the 21st century. We are actually using this as data sharing mechanism. Yeah, isn't there a platform, a tool, anything which can help me doing it in a digital way? Yeah? So he was looking for it, but there was actually nothing. Yeah. So he came back to Germany after that, after a few weeks, and said we have to implement a solution for such situations. Yeah. So if there is a natural catastrophe or a pandemic, we need a solution that actually helps us evaluate the situation and then bring the help to the parts where it's best needed, yeah, or it's most needed. And that was basically our starting point. Yeah, we said, okay, let's just implement a small app and have a look how this could help, and then iterate, show it to people, get feedback, and continue just working with it. And we did that, and then presented it to various people, got very good feedback, and now are basically implementing it as a first kind of productive version for Nepal. So Martin, let's look into our current version of the software.
Yes. I will share the application.
Cool.
Okay.
Very good. So everything which is around natural catastrophes, yeah, or this pandemic, there's a lot of location-based data, yeah. So our starting point was, let's have a map-based view where we basically present data to a person who actually wants to understand the situation in the country. Yeah? And now basically based on this base layer, you basically put on information which is relevant for these people. Yeah? So you can basically select layers here. And basically, if we get started, perhaps you could use the earthquake shake map. So that was actually an earthquake in Nepal. Could zoom in a bit to see that where the epicenter is and get first some information on how hard this stroke Nepal. Yeah? And the general idea of being prepared for such natural catastrophes is actually to understand the base situation of people on the ground. Yeah? So for example, what we took as from open source data sources, yeah, there's a space which is called humanitarian data exchange, is first of all population data, right? So if you enable the population data layer, Martin?
Density, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. We can then see where actually the population is living in Nepal. You see there a large dark area, which is actually Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal, and then the southern areas near to the border to India are quite busy. Yeah? Nevertheless, you could then, it's quite important to understand in which physical situation, health situation people are. So you could, for example, enable something like the vaccination status of children, yeah, to understand this other layer, Martin. Yeah, this one exactly. Mm-hmm. To understand now how well prepared the population is to cope with a natural disaster or a pandemic. Yeah. So there's a lot of base data you can collect on such a platform to actually understand the situation post pre-crisis. Yeah? What you can then do is that we looked at further open source data sources we could use in such scenarios. And one very interesting part is the so-called Copernicus program from the European Union. Which is basically called the European Eye on the Earth. Yeah? So they have a lot of satellites scanning Earth and providing services with the satellite data. And one interesting aspect is that in such situations, they actually use satellite data to map destroyed infrastructure. Yeah? If we basically loaded this data as well, I just currently don't see it here in the list. If you go down a bit, yeah, yeah, it's probably not loaded on the system, but same goes for health sites. Yeah. If you enable the health sites, yeah, the last one exactly, then you basically can get a good vision of where actually health sites are, where health services are provided in a country. And if you now combine it with the data on destroyed infrastructure, we could figure out which actually health sites were destroyed or partially destroyed. So to understand where now health supply is actually missing in the country. Yeah? And we said that's quite nice, yeah, but perhaps not enough, yeah. So enable the hospital isochrones. We said we also want to understand better. So it was on the bottom. Yeah, above the health sites. So we want to understand better which areas of the country are actually currently served by health institutions. Yeah. And in many countries, that is currently done by just doing a circle around my hospital, let's say of 2 or 3 or 5 kilometers, and saying this is the area the hospital serves. Yeah? But the reality, especially in countries like Nepal, is that you have to obviously take into account the topography of the country. Yeah. I have heard Nepal has some high mountains, and also the road infrastructure there. Yeah? And we are using an open source or an open service called Open Routes, Open Street
Maps.
Yeah, based on OpenStreetMaps, but it's a separate service which basically is provided by the University of Heidelberg, and basically provides APIs where you can get these isochrone information from. Yeah, you just provide a location and they give you the isochrones. In our case, we use it for foot walking, but it's also possible for driving, for example. Yeah? So quite a nice thing where we are using open or public APIs to actually provide services in such a pandemic situation. Yeah? When we have been doing this, in the first place, we quite focused on natural catastrophes. And there we also said, okay, we need some way how people can collaborate on this platform. And you see it here on the part on the left-hand side as disaster response. So basically, via our platform, you can basically do the whole help coordination, which means you identify demands where actually demand is required. And you identify supply, so these humanitarian organizations. And you then can basically match these two together and then basically monitor what people are doing on this platform as well. Yeah? I think in the sake of time, we won't show all of that yet. Plus, then obviously COVID-19 or Corona hit the whole world. And obviously, this was one main driver to even further push this solution. Yeah? That people were saying, we want a good overview about our country, what actually is happening with Corona infections. Yeah? And for that, we basically also loaded a lot of Corona-related information. And you know probably from Slovakia and Germany that we have quite nice statistics on how the COVID spread is actually moving. For example, one quite well-known indicator is the 7 days incidence. So how many, in the last 7 days, how many people got infected by Corona? Yeah? And in Nepal, they don't have it. Yeah, they can manually, perhaps in an Excel sheet, calculate it. But we implemented something here that basically, based on the data we receive via APIs on the Corona infections, we basically calculate these incidence rates over the last seven days within the platform, and then show it also as layer here again on the map. Plus, this can be extended. One other use case is that we basically got from a university or a joint research group of the European Union, basically a model to predict the risk of Corona. Yeah? And you see it here on the left-hand side. You could, for example, Martin, enable this risk index. Yeah, yeah, more to the top, exactly. So in general, we calculate how high the risk now is in a certain area of Nepal. It's still on a quite high level. We want to break it down even further on a lower administrative level to show how high the risk is in a certain area. As you can see, for example, in Nepal, the current situation is that on the border to India, there's quite a high risk because there's quite a lot of exchange between Nepal and India. And India has quite high corona numbers. Yeah, so the risk is relatively high in this region. So again, decision makers can put the help or the limited resources they have to help people in the specific areas where the need is highest. And before handing over to Martin, who will show you also quickly our dashboard, and then we go into the tech stack. One key important part of bringing such technologies to developing countries, I think if you are inspired and want to do it as well, program an app and provide it to people. I think it's super important that you do it in a sustainable way, which means you cannot just throw it over to the country and say, use it, but you really have to involve the local people, in our case here in Nepal. So we are in close contact with the people from the government, but also the actual users, trying to really get them the feeling that their needs are well are taken and put into the application, to support them really over a period of time to use the system, and then even involve them in the further development. Yeah, so that's why we also want to, in the first version, we will put open source. So first of all, the people from Nepal can then contribute, but also other countries can use the application and just customize it to their needs. So that's, I think, a key, because there are too many applications which are just thrown out and nobody cares in the end who is actually using it. Yeah. So Martin, let me hand over to you, and yeah.
Okay, so we can take a look at our dashboard. For now, we are using just some older data for testing purposes. But basically, we've got a public dashboard, which is customized for Nepal. We got basic overview of cases of COVID-19 in Nepal, and there from previous day, the change. We use Plotly library, which is interactive. So we can check the cases differences by provinces. Can check a distribution by provinces, and then we can, let's say, be more specific and open a chart which differentiates distribution in that province. On the other tabs, we've got more specific view for other types of users of the application, especially this sunburst chart, in which we can check active cases, cured cases, and differentiated by province. And then we've got a more deeper view for the analysts. For example, about PCR tests, symptom checker, app results per province. Yeah, and also the same as previously, case distribution and commodities used for COVID-19. Okay, so that's basically it for the dashboards we use. So shall I now talk about the technologies we use, or would you like to add anything, Ingmar?
No, that's fine. I think in general, what we wanted to show here is basically that there are more different views, yeah, on the data. Yeah, a dashboard is one option we could have, yeah, and which was requested now by Nepal in this specific case, to actually have the data also for, let's say, management or executives who want a quick view rather than people really analyzing it on a map-based view. Yeah. Yeah, but let's dive into the technology. I think everyone is waiting for that.
Okay. So I will share the tech stack. Okay, so you should see the presentation in showing application architecture. So basically, we are using MS Azure tech stack. We chose Cosmos DB and Azure Storage for their availability and scalability. Cosmos DB, especially for their different APIs, from which we are using MongoDB especially. Then we are using Kubernetes tech stack. It means we use a Dockerized application based on what users see is React.js application, and then we've got one main API built in Express.js, which then handles users' requests, communicating with Cosmos DB and Azure Storage. Then we are using some manual jobs. For example, we are connecting to external API to download some statistical data. And those manual jobs are triggered for now by the user using a GitLab pipeline and manual jobs. And one of the jobs may be, let's say, a calculation of the risk index and risk class for the layers we just saw in the map previously, and also for the dashboard data. So basically, we are doing some one-time run of one Docker container, which contains another Express.js microservice, which takes some data from Cosmos DB, runs some calculations based on our predefined criteria, and stores a new attributes for the layer in the database. And then basically, as the job is done, the container is destroyed. Another example might be connecting to external API for downloading the external data, let's say for lower respiration syndromes, storing it in a form of CSV in our Azure storage, and then running another data transformation on it. So basically, we use a GitLab pipeline for deploying a whole Kubernetes environment on Azure, which maintains scalability and availability most of the time. For the local development, we are now playing around with Dockerized Azure storage, just so we don't load our Azure storage on the cloud. We use MongoDB as a Cosmos supports it. Also, for extra security layer, we are playing around with the Azure App Service, which basically provides you similar functionalities as Kubernetes, but it's handled by Azure itself, providing scalability, availability, and extra layer of security, meaning you can use Azure ID to log into the application. For now, for the security layer, they provided only for a single Docker application. So we just had to rework the stuff a little bit and create one Docker, which serves Express.js application, which then serves static content, meaning the UI. And that's probably it for the tech stack we are currently using.
Yeah, perhaps, I mean, what we are always thinking about is we always said we want to only use open source technologies, yeah, for the whole stack. And now you see here a Cosmos DB, which is basically a proprietary solution from Azure, a kind of a database as a service, yeah, which helped us definitely in the beginning to get running very fast, yeah, to just do it, yeah. The nice thing about Cosmos DB is though that you can basically they have a MongoDB driver basically, and you can, for example, for local development, just use a MongoDB as an alternative, yeah, and therefore, we still, at the moment, we are still in this phase where we want to use the cloud services as much as possible, so we don't have much work with it, yeah. So these as a service services, but still looking that we don't kind of have vendor lock-in with one solution now, in this case from Microsoft. So we are keep some flexibility and then changing technology at some point. Yeah. I think that's quite important. Also, when thinking about Kubernetes in this case here versus app services from Microsoft. Yeah. For us, there it's quite important as we're working with partially confidential data. Yeah, on for example health data. Yeah. We need these extra security features, which in our case, the app services provide. But in the end, we still don't want to be too much bound now to Microsoft here in this case. Yeah. Okay, other than that, yeah, that's basically a quick walkthrough to the Oscar application. Which hopefully goes live quite soon in Nepal, and then we are basically now talking with a couple of other countries in Southeast Asia, especially to further extend the use of this app. Plus, the app is also financed by the Ministry in Germany for Development Ministry of Germany. So we really want to push it to further countries if they have a need for it. Yeah, so that's also quite important. Don't just give your tech solution you believe are the best in the world to these countries, but they really have to have a use case and are committed to use this application. So yeah, back to the studio in Bratislava, I would say.
Ingmar, Martin, thank you very much for sharing this amazing solution, and I wish you good luck with the deployment. So that was all for today. If there are any questions for Oscar solution, please post the question to the booth chat, and guys will stay a little longer and will answer all the questions in the chat. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I hope that you liked the presentations and demos. And I also would like to invite you for tomorrow at about the same time. We will continue and show you something more. So thanks for today. Enjoy the evening.